Okay, music composer Mithoon is on a roll. If you thought that he stunned you with Malang, Khuda Hafiz has him doing the entire album, and it's such a pleasure to talk to him. I asked you this off the mic, and I have to ask you this on the mic. I hope your family is safe and healthy, and you're doing fine, Mithun.
Yes, Rishi, by the grace of God, everything is good, and we've been following the discipline as has been advised. So I think that's very important.
This is a very important album for you, Mithun, because there are so many firsts in it. I mean, we'll go through all those firsts one by one. But to me, I think the wonderful fact is that you're the confluence of the past and the present and the future. By that I mean is Armaan Malik is so excited that he's working with you for the first time, and you're so excited that you're working with Sonu Nigam for the first time. So talk about the firsts in this particular album in Khuda Hafiz.
I think there are a lot of firsts in this album. This is the first time that I'm working with director Farooq Kabir. The first time I'm working with Sonu Nigam. The first time with Armaan Malik. First time with Javed Ali. First time with Vishal Mishra. Uh, so yeah, it's been quite an exciting adventure for me, Rishi, and especially because of the times in which the album came together. Because I signed the film last year, and we had made a few themes and I'd given it to the director, but we hadn't recorded the songs per se. And the pandemic happened, the lockdown happened, so there was no clarity on the film's release. Actually, I thought it will happen post Diwali, but then the film went on onto OTT, and I had to give them the entire soundtrack within 1 month. So getting together everything in a month, recording online, creating a virtual studio through Session Via, where we recorded everybody in different cities together in one place in a virtual, connectivity, was very exciting, and it's a very unique experience for me.
Yeah, it's been tricky. There have been lots of learnings for all of us because lots of times when you use these video recording tools, sometimes the sync of the sound doesn't happen at the exact same time. I mean, you could be playing the piano and I could be singing and we could have a guitar player, but the fact that it has to sync all of that together. So it must have been a great learning for you technology wise also, Mithun.
Definitely, and to be honest with you, as it didn't come naturally. It took There was a lot of trial and error that we went through, and I must mention my dear friend and mixing engineer Eric Pillai, who took charge of everything and you know guided us on this and brought everything together.
Lovely. Okay, now let's just go song by song. I mean, uh, Jaan Ban Gaye, the song is also special because Assis and you just had a wonderful hit in Intezar. I can't tell
Gee.
you how much I love that song. It's on my phone. I really enjoy still listening to it. And coming as this does after Intezar, and also the fact that Vishal Mishra is working with you for the first time. Talk me through the song Jaan Ban Gaye, which is really, I think, even though Khuda Hafiz has a title track, this really is the bedrock of the film in a lot of ways.
I think definitely because the love story element of the film is the foundation for everything that happens in the film, and that's why director Farooq Kabir was very keen that the love song should have a lot of celebration. It should be completely full of life and full of expression, full of emotion, full of joy, so that all the colors are shown in it, and then everything else makes sense after that. So Vishal Mishra was my choice. I wanted the song to sound, I wanted it to have a Hindustani heart. I wanted it to have a certain strong foundation in its melody, and that's why I took the slightly uh, ghazal route, if I can call that, something where I'm very very proud of and very fond of. And Assis brings that very naturally. She's a natural when it comes to a certain mode of singing. The way she has rendered lines like "Aapki तारीफ में क्या कहें, आप हमारी जान बन गए." वो जो that tehzeeb and that culture, she brings it to the fore very very naturally. And Vishal sounded very fresh to me. His freshness is what really appealed to me in his texture, and I think it made for a good combination together.
Saeed Saab and you, he's literally seen you begin your career. I mean, you look at the body of work that the two of you have done, Saeed Qadri and you, Zehar, Murder 2, Agar, Lamhe, The Train. Anwar. I don't know if I'm missing any. I mean, there's been such a large body of work. And here he is back again. And more recently, he was with you in Malang.
Yeah, he
So
was.
there's obviously, despite the age gap and despite the generation gap, it looks to me like you get each other. So Saeed Saab again is your main collaborator in lyrics through this album.
Definitely, I think you said it very rightly, Rishi. That even though Kadri Saab is much senior to me and he's seen a life a lot more than me, but he has the open mindedness, and he has the wisdom and the compassion to embrace me and my ideas as well, and that makes a great merger. I've literally learned poetry from him, and I've learned the tamiz of shairi from him. And for him to come on board even for Khuda Hafiz, it's a very musical word, Khuda Hafiz, but the way he's brought it in the sentence, so he's brought it at the end of every line. So he says, "Hum milenge
Yeah.
fir kisi din, tab talak Khuda Hafiz. ये जुदाइयां है कुछ दिन, तब तलक खुदा हाफिज. पल ये बीत जाएगा, प्यार लौट आएगा, वक्त का बहता ये दरिया फिर किनारे लाएगा. याद रखना मुझको मौसिन, तब तलक खुदा हाफिज." I think this is just pure mastery and nothing else.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Also, on a lighter note, I saw a performance of you at your grand piano along with Farooq and Vidyut, and I told Vidyut this, that he should not attempt singing. Though I was quite impressed by Farooq. Vidyut was just coming in and adding the punches, a few lines in the chorus, but Farooq sang along. So it looks as though you guys had some fun in there. Just hanging out and banging something out.
Yeah, I think that's what I think Farooq should get the credit for that, because he's such an energetic person, and he can actually bring the entire room alive. And he allowed me to do what I wanted to do. He would sing along, he would hum along. He would sometimes get up and start, kind of swooning to the beats, and he was very very lively. That kept us all charged up, I think.
Now, like I said, let's come to Armaan. He's a good kid, a smart kid, and it's amazing that he sent me pictures of his huge billboard in Times Square in New York. Now that he's put out an international album and this and that, and it's a collaboration that his fans and your fans have been waiting for a while, and Mera Intezar Karna finally does that, and you're bringing Armaan in to do that. So. Talk to me about that. Again, it was done during the lockdown, so I don't know whether he was in his studio, you were here. Did you do it patch by patch? Did you Skype each other or FaceTime each other? Take me through that.
So I've always wanted to work with Armaan, Rishi. I've always liked his voice. For the last couple of years. In fact, we even met up and we've been jamming on a few ideas, and we both had the maturity and the patience to not force it. So we were waiting for the right energies to come together. And when I was looking for the voice for Mera Intezar Karna, I was very keen that Armaan sings the song. And yeah, I called him up. He was very excited about it. He was very positive, and I sent him the song. He worked on it. He rehearsed it. He called me back. We jammed over FaceTime a couple of times. He hit the mic. He sent me one draft. I had a few pointers to make. But yeah, it was, I think, within 48 hours we had got everything we wanted. So it was just meant to happen, and I'm very very proud with the way, because it's not a film kind of structure. It's a very singer songwriter space, and that's why I wanted Armaan for the song, because he's writing his own music. He's going independent. He's trying to break the barriers. He has a mind of his own. That's the kind of artist I wanted for Mera Intezar Kar.
Also, I'm very curious to know. I mean, given the fact that your music is so soaked in melody. I mean, when one thinks of Mithun, one thinks melody. I mean, I'm not saying that you can't do stuff like what you've done in the title track, which is punchy stuff. But the fact that Sonu and you have never worked together thus far, did you offer him songs in the past? Did he not want to do it because of whatever reason, or did it just not happen? I mean, talk to me about that.
There's a very interesting comment that Sonu Nigam made. If you see his Instagram post yesterday, I think that answers it all. He actually said that in so many years, Mithun and me have never worked together, and we've never even discussed the collaboration. And I'm glad that didn't happen, because when it happened, his best song has come to me.
Oh, wonderful.
So he actually thinks that Aakhri Kadam Tak is my best work so far, and I'm glad he feels that way. And I also kind of intellectually agree with him. I think it's a very special song for me also. And the kind of feedback that song is getting, it's just phenomenal, Rishi. The kind of comments coming on the jukebox, people are really connecting to that song.
Yeah, and you've left that tremble in his voice just there, you know. You've let it be. And
Yeah.
that's a tremble we don't hear enough of these days. You have to go back to older Sonu Nigam material. So, in that aspect, it's really lovely. I believe you have an Egyptian musician. What track have you used him for? What have you used him for? And how did that collaboration happen, Mithun?
So in my title track, there was this particular part which is it's more like an alap. It's more like a vocal phrase for which I wanted to bring in a slightly, Middle Eastern feel to the track because the film is also based in that kind of a culture. And I was trying a few voices and I could not get what I wanted. I tried doing it myself also and it didn't work. And that's when I contacted my music producer in Arizona, Ishan Chabra, and I told him that that's what I have in mind, and I sent him a reference in my own voice, and I told him I want this recorded by an authentic, Middle Eastern vocalist. And then he contacted this singer by the name of Ahmad Al Hajra, who's based in Los Angeles, and he sent me something, and we jammed over the phone once again, and it sounded really nice. It was very authentic. So it was great that he came on board as a guest artist, to do that bit. And his voice, Vishal Dadlani's voice, the music production, Saeed Kadri's poetry, it all just blended well. So it was very exciting for me as an artist to do these kind of things.
And Mithun, big ups to you because when you use somebody who's like what you've done with Ahmed, which is use a Middle Eastern singer, it's important to bring him or her the right point in the song. Like if you see songs which really stick, like Desert Rose with Sting and Cheb Mami, for example, where that Algerian singer's portion comes in, it just sits so nicely and beautifully in the song. So I think where Ahmed comes in, it just perfectly complements everything else that's happening in the mix, whether it's Vishal or whether it's Saeed Saab's words or your music. So really appropriate place where it's coming, and I think that really adds another dimension to the title track. It's just fabulous. So a lot of albums just now have started doing the mandatory unplugged. I want to know whether this came straight from your heart. You called Javed and said, do it, or was it one of those things where, chalo yaar, ek album mein ek unplugged version bhi dal dete hain. So where did that come from?
Actually, to be honest, Rishi, that when it comes to music, right, there are many areas in my life also which are like, ki chalo yaar kar lete. But when it comes to music, nothing is ever chalo yaar. It's very, very
Good.
thought.
Yeah.
It's very, very revered, and it's very, very precisely done. And Javed is someone who I really respect because he is what playback singers are actually made of. The steel that he has, he's a singer that you give him any tune and he can sing it back to you the way it is supposed to be sung 100% right. And when this melody came to me of the Khuda of his title song, when I got this idea, I felt that the song has something more to offer apart from the original version. And I felt that the silence of the song also should be celebrated. And that's when I first did a piano version of the song, and I sent that to Javed Ali, and he sang it back beautifully. If you listen to the way he sung, the diction, the way he's pronounced the words, the way he's taken certain improvisation, it's very, very beautiful. And then I only changed it. I took off the pianos and I sent it to my guitarist Kalyan Barua. I told him to add guitars over it, and I kept it like a guitar voice unplugged kind of a space.
Yeah, very nice. I'm just curious to know, have you always had a home studio or did you have to build a studio at home for the lockdown? Because some musicians don't like to do that. I was speaking to Clinton Sereo and Clinton said, bro, in this lockdown, I've had to bring my work home. Otherwise, I've always kept the studio in Juhu so that, after a point, I come back to the family. But in lockdown now, you have to work 20 hours a day because, everybody knows you have a studio at home. So were you always the home studio kind of person or did you have to adapt to the lockdown?
So I have a dedicated studio actually, which I've had it for the last 3 years now. a fully equipped recording studio. The only benefit that I have, it is in the same premise of my residence.
Ah,
So
great.
I would just walk across the lift and enter the studio. So that was one benefit I had.
That's good. So, at least you have a little bit of a separation when you come back home, change in
Yeah.
area. Uh, so, here's this entire album. We haven't talked about Vishal Dadlani as yet. Uh, like you said, this is the first time that he's working with you. How did that go about? Again, was it out of the blue, or was it like with Armaan that you guys had jammed before, talked about it, and then it happened?
No, this was more like out of the blue. I had never discussed work with Vishal in the past. We've met a few times, and we've had a lot of mutual respect for each other, but we had never discussed doing a song together. And when I was looking for the right voice for the title track, I happened to mention Vishal's name in one of the sessions with Farooq Kabir. And Farooq was so excited. He was very, very sure that idea of mine will work. And the minute Vishal came on board, the entire energy of the song came from his voice. And after that, it just kept getting better and better. Then Ahmad came on board, and then we redesigned the production. Then we, slightly spunked up the track, and then Eric Pillay mixed it, and he brought another dimension to the mix, and it just kept getting better. But I think Vishal coming in was a defining moment in the song.
I also like it that a lot of these young kids, arrangers, programmers, like God's Will, for example. You were talking about Ishan, who lives in the U.S. Kaushal Goyal. All these kids are getting to work on tracks for you. Do the production, do the programming. It must also be nice for you. As somebody who's been around from the '90s, to have these kids do this programming for you, because it also gives you some kind of a fresh infusion as an artist.
More than a fresh infusion, I see it the way I see it, Rishi. I see it as leaving behind a legacy, because for me, music is not just a profession; it's an ideology. It's a way of life. It reflects in every decision of my life, and it goes back to my grandfather, Pandit Ram Prasad Sharma, who taught so many students. He taught more than 5,000 musicians. He was also the guru of the legendary Pyarelal Saab, and he taught my father and so many other musicians. And we have a particular discipline, we have a particular mindset, a devotion to music which is beyond views and beyond likes and beyond all this entire culture. And that's something that I'm trying to give, because it has worked for me. Rishi, in the past there have been discussions about my approach and my low profile approach, or my overtly focused approach on my content, and maybe not being very social media friendly and not being out there, and a lot of conversations have happened. But I'm glad, by the grace of God, over the years, my method has actually worked for me very well, that today people actually respect me for who I am and how I am. And I have a great connect with my listeners. Right after Kabir Singh, they have given me so much of love. So I'm trying to imbibe these values and leave behind this legacy with my team members as well, because I feel that this is very, very important, and this method and this discipline has to carry forward.
That's lovely. Very, very, very beautifully put. So, is there a skill that you picked up with lockdown? People are learning so many things. Some people are cooking. Some people are doing jhadu pocha. Is there some skill that you picked up, even if it's a
I
new
think
software?
Jhadu Pocha doesn't need to be learned. I think that's imbibed in all of us from childhood. So we who grew up in flats, right? So that's
Yeah.
something that we were very well versed with. But I could not do anything else because I was busy writing, constantly writing. I've written a lot of music, Rishi, and once Khuda Haafizs is done, also I'm doing a lot more work which is coming out. My next film is with Yashraj Films. It's Shamshera, directed by Karan Malhotra. And then I'm working with Mohit Suri on his next film. I've got a couple of films with T series. I'm doing another non-film project where I'm featuring myself with again with Bhushan Kumar. So, but all happening at with music at its core. That principle. I promise my listeners I'll never let go of that.
Also, something very interesting. I was having a conversation with Bobby Deol because his film is releasing on an OTT platform. And I found out that Viju Shah had done the music for it. And I was telling Bobby, my God, you acted in Gupt and now you're acting in this class of '83, and Viju sir has done music there and here. So Viju Shah is back for the attack, if I can say that, with this particular Netflix project. And you worked with Viju Shah, you recreated Tip Tip. So that must have been a nice experience. Let's talk about that.
I think it was a phenomenal experience because I have grown up listening to Viju Bhai's work, and I've always learned from his music so much. And I don't do too much of television, Rishi. I'm not very comfortable with the idea. I used to not be comfortable, but when times came to me with this show, right, and I found it so refreshing because here you have two composers sitting on a stage with another musician who's hosting it, and you're just talking music and you're talking ideas, and you're going to be recreating each other's songs with their permission, paying respect to them in front of them. So it's so exciting, and I just took it up, and I'm so glad with the kind of love I've got for Tip Tip Barsa Pani. I mean, if you go and check out the reviews and you
Yeah.
check the online comments, it's spectacular, and I feel so proud that I could be a part of something like this.
Mithun, if you don't know about this issue, feel free to say that you don't want to answer it and you need to read up more about it because you've been very busy doing your own stuff. But there's been a lot of outcry from artists who are doing online shows because the IPRS has said that they're going to start charging people for doing cover versions. So there are all these artists during lockdown who have got onto Facebook and Instagram, and they're doing live shows of cover versions, not just their own material. And IPRS says, they've got a rate card, and they've said you've got to pay so much for a half an hour performance, 1 hour performance, and things like that. What is your view on that? Because a lot of young artists who have not broken out are saying this is their amdani ka zaria during the lockdown, which is just performing to an audience, and they are not always doing ticketed shows. They're just going live to their followers. So, have
Right.
you thought of this? Or if you have not read much about it, then we can avoid this.
I haven't read in detail about this, Rishi, but I can definitely say this much because as a musician, I would have a point of view. I think that creativity should not be restricted. It definitely should come out. And if there are artists out there who want to reinterpret songs and they want to put out stuff, I think that should happen. Now, it should happen in the right way. It should happen in the legal way. The permissions, everything should be in place, and I think it should be made easy for them. I know it's very difficult to define the word easy right now, but something which is reasonable to them, and it is also fair to the creators and the organizations. But I would never want this thing to stop. That would really be very sad. It should not stop. It should be encouraged, and they should come to some kind of understanding which is fair to both.
Yeah, that's a good answer. So you're saying if somebody does a half an hour, 1 hour show or cover version of Mithun songs, if they are perhaps selling tickets for it, then that needs to be looked into. But if they're
Yeah,
just doing their own interpretation for their own fans, maybe one can be a little lenient on them. Is that what you're saying, perhaps?
yeah. I mean, whether you call it ticketed, Rishi, or maybe if there is a revenue being generated,
Generated, correct?
then
Yeah,
it should be, there should be something fair to it. And I'm not saying this from my point of view. I'm saying it from the bodies who are governing all these things.
yeah, yeah.
But if there is no revenue, then how do you expect an artist to do anything? I can't comment on that.
No, that's a very, very valid and fine point. I'm going to ask you to sing for me. I'm really sorry. I don't know if you have a keyboard handy. If you don't, you have such a melodious voice. So maybe you can do a few lines of Jaan Ban Gaye or Khuda Hafiz. I leave it up to you, but we'd like it from the album. Anything? Yeah, just a few
Yeah, I'll
lines.
do a little bit of. Today's not the best day. In fact, the climate has really gotten to me from morning. I
Yeah,
woke up with a very sore throat, but let me do a little bit of Khuda Hafiz.
yeah, nice.
So the song goes like, हम मिलेंगे फिर किसी दिन तब तलक खुदा हाफिज ये जुदाइयां है कुछ दिन तब तलक खुदा हाफिज पल ये बीत जाएगा प्यार लौट आएगा वक्त का बहता ये दरिया फिर किनारे लाएगा, याद रखना मुझको मोहसिन तब तलक, खुदा हाफिज। ये जुदाइयां है कुछ दिन तब तलक, खुदा हाफिज, खुदा हाफिज।
Beautiful. Thank you so much for indulging me, even though you've had a bad throat day. Mithun, conversations with you are really lovely. You're so in the moment, and it's great just to talk music, bro. Have a good one, and thank you for the music of Khuda Hafiz. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Cheers.
Thank you, Rishi. You take care and stay safe.